Hey folks, just a quick message before we dive in. Make sure you're following S News to stay up to date with this and all our future videos. And if you want to support us, don't forget to subscribe, like and drop a comment. It really helps us out. Urgent and very important developments coming right up. US President Joe Biden has ordered the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines to what he called strategic locations near Russia. But don't get your hopes too high. This is basically what can be interpreted from Putin's recent statements alongside his close ally, Alexander Lukashenko. Russia's reaction? Well, they've described these moves as disgusting. Putin said, "This is Biden's war, not mine. But if I win, I'll try to end it." Meanwhile, Yemen's armed forces carried out a major military strike targeting Al-Lud airport in the occupied Jaffa region using a hypersonic ballistic missile. The Yemeni military says it's closely monitoring enemy movements and a dangerous US-Israeli attempt to infiltrate Yemen. There's also a warning from Tel Aviv about a coming disaster being quietly prepared by the Houthis. Elsewhere, Somaliland reportedly struck a deal with Washington, recognition in exchange for helping in the war against the Houthis. Netanyahu has begun executing plans to forcibly relocate Palestinians, while Trump hit back at Canada for recognizing Palestine. Berlin is putting pressure on Netanyahu. Either accept a Palestinian state or face international isolation. Sweden is also criticizing Netanyahu and has suspended its trade agreement with Tel Aviv. Erdogan warned Tel Aviv, and the United States appears to be turning on Netanyahu, accusing him of dragging out the war for personal political gain. A new United States-Israeli agreement has been reached to release all hostages in one coordinated move. At the same time, the Israeli military claims to have foiled a serious Palestinian military operation, while the Iranian president declared that destroying Tel Aviv is within reach. Israel also bombed large sites belonging to Lebanese factions, and a Syrian-Israeli agreement is reportedly in the works to resolve the crisis in Sweida. Back to Trump. Washington doubts his ability to follow through on threats against Russia. Moscow openly warned him any recklessness will be met with a dead-hand response. These wars show no sign of cooling down. Tel Aviv is now turning to cyber warfare, trying to crack into the Houthis' secrets to find a code that could stop future threats from Yemen. According to a Lebanese magazine, there's been a spike in United States-Israeli cyber espionage operations against the Houthis to make up for a lack of intel, especially since Yemen became more involved in supporting Gaza. The magazine also reported efforts to recruit Yemenis through phishing messages and paid ads to gather intel on Houthi leaders and naval positions. Some spies were reportedly trained abroad and are operating under the cover of international organizations, using advanced tech for prior assassinations. An Israeli business outlet warned that Israel's construction sector is collapsing due to the Iranian war. There's a shortage of workers and delays in raw materials, especially because of Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea. In a surprising twist, Bloomberg reported that Somaliland offered the United States a military base and a mining deal in exchange for diplomatic recognition. Experts say this could expand America's military footprint near the Red Sea, just as Houthi attacks on US-linked ships are ramping up. Meanwhile, Egypt's Suez Canal chief Osama Rabi confirmed that traffic through the canal has dropped by more than half due to Red Sea tensions, with only 35 ships passing daily compared to 75 to 80 before the Yemen-Israel conflict started. From the Red Sea front lines to Palestine, Yedioth Aharonoth revealed that Netanyahu told National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir the voluntary evacuation plan for Gaza residents would be implemented within weeks if current negotiations fail. This is seen as an attempt to calm Ben-Gvir's criticism and keep the ruling coalition stable. The Mossad has reportedly been tasked with stepping up talks with countries that might accept Gaza's displaced residents. On the diplomatic front, Trump slammed Canada for backing a Palestinian state, saying it could block a potential trade deal. Germany's foreign minister called for immediate recognition of Palestine, stressing that a two-state solution is the only path to peace. He warned that Tel Aviv is facing global isolation and Berlin is trying to prevent that. As Europe continues to shift, Reuters reported that Sweden's Prime Minister joined the Dutch initiative to suspend the free trade agreement with Israel due to Gaza's humanitarian crisis, though the plan still lacks majority support in the European Union. Turkey's Erdogan announced increased pressure on Israel, warning that the world's patience is wearing thin in the face of Israeli violations in Gaza. He praised growing humanitarian support in Europe and welcomed any step toward recognizing a Palestinian state. And what about the ships still reaching Tel Aviv? That's a whole other story. On the political side, The Atlantic reported that Trump's administration believes Netanyahu is prolonging the war in Gaza to boost his political position, even though the war's military goals have already been met from Washington's perspective. According to the magazine, the White House thinks Netanyahu's actions are slowing down efforts for a ceasefire, though no public disagreement has emerged between the United States and Israel. Even so, White House officials say Trump won't hold Netanyahu accountable and still blames the Palestinian side for the failure of the ceasefire talks. In another development, Israel's Channel 12 revealed a new understanding between Tel Aviv and Washington, involving, from a partial plan to release some hostages to a broader one that includes freeing all of them in exchange for the disarmament of the Palestinian movement. Military operations in Gaza are still ongoing. At the same time, the United States has imposed sanctions on officials from the Palestinian Authority and members of the PLO, a move that highlights just how complicated the political situation is, despite growing international support for a Palestinian state. On the ground, Israeli Army radio reported that a Palestinian faction tried to capture Israeli soldiers near Khan Yunis. Reports say the group was well trained and had a solid backup plan in case the operation failed. Switching to the Iran file, which has been largely frozen, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told the Financial Times that the United States should compensate Iran for damages caused by American attacks on its nuclear facilities and must guarantee no further attacks during any future negotiations. He said Iranian leadership has grown increasingly suspicious of Western intentions, especially with rising internal opposition to rejoining talks. Araghchi also stated that Iran still has the technical expertise and resources to quickly restore its nuclear program, emphasizing that many scientists and technicians are ready to go. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian added that during the recent war, Tel Aviv was within range of Iran's missiles, despite United States support and Israel's Iron Dome system. He accused Washington of arming Israel to commit violations, while the international community remained silent. Meanwhile, on the Lebanese-Israeli front, the Israeli military said it bombed a major site in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley used by local factions to produce drones aimed at Tel Aviv. The Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, said the strike targeted the largest precision missile production lines, warning that any attempts to rebuild these capabilities will be met with a decisive response. From Beirut, we move to developments on the Syrian-Israeli front. According to Israeli media, Tel Aviv has told Damascus it would accept Syrian internal security forces being deployed in the Suwaida province, on the condition that they are locals only. This seems to be an attempt to stabilize the area without sparking new tensions. On a related note, Russia's deputy foreign minister confirmed that Moscow and Damascus are still discussing the future of Russian military bases in Syria. He said the bases could play a humanitarian role in the next phase. Then there's the looming threat from Washington. The United States gave Moscow a short deadline to end the Ukraine war. But the response came from Washington itself, casting doubt on whether President Trump is even capable of acting against Russia if it ignores the warning. According to responsible statecraft, Trump's ultimatum to Russia won't change the course or outcome of the war. Moscow isn't likely to give up its military edge unless Kiev and the West offer major concessions. Meanwhile, United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington held talks this week with top Russian officials in an attempt to reach some kind of mutual understanding about a future peace plan in Ukraine. Rubio emphasized that a direct military clash with Russia is not an option due to both countries' nuclear arsenals. He also said the United States hopes to avoid additional sanctions on Russian oil or its banking sector and wants to push for a peaceful resolution. In response, Russia's Deputy Security Council Chairman Dmitry Medvedev reminded everyone about Russia's dead-hand nuclear system, saying Moscow could deliver a devastating counterstrike even if its central command were destroyed. Military expert Alexei Leonkov explained that the system was built during the Soviet era to ensure a retaliatory nuclear strike if Russia's leadership is wiped out. It automatically sends launch orders to missile platforms across the country using pre-programmed codes. Finally, at the end of the video, I just want to thank you all for listening and encourage you to follow S News and check out our future videos. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. Thanks.